Imagine walking through the streets of Paris in the middle of the 18th century. The city is buzzing with ideas. Coffee houses are filled with debates about reason, liberty, science, and philosophy. Somewhere in a quiet salon, Voltaire is being discussed. Someone else is quoting Rousseau. A young intellectual might be arguing about Montesquieu and his theory of the separation of powers. If we follow the traditional story of the Enlightenment, this is the world we expect to see. A world of philosophers writing serious books about reason and political reform. A world where ideas slowly reshape society. But here is a strange historical question. What if the most widely read books of the Enlightenment were not philosophical treatises at all? What if the books people were secretly passing around were obscene stories about the king? Stories filled with scandal, satire, and sometimes shockingly explicit jokes about the royal court. And what if those forbidden books helped destroy the sacred image of the monarchy long before the French Revolution began? Today we are stepping into one of the strangest corners of Enlightenment history. The underground literary world of 18th century France. A hidden network of smugglers, printers, and writers who produced banned books that mixed pornography with political satire. Some historians now believe that these scandalous pamphlets may have done something the respectable philosophers could not. They made the monarchy look ridiculous. And once people start laughing at a king, ruling by divine right becomes a lot harder. This is To the Lighthouse. Here we navigate the complexities of history, one story at a time. When people talk about the Enlightenment, they usually tell a very elegant story. It is a story filled with famous names and famous books. Voltaire is writing Candide, a biting philosophical satire that mocks blind optimism and the cruelty of institutions. Rousseau is writing The Social Contract, arguing that legitimate political authority comes from the will of the people rather than from kings chosen by God. Montesquieu publishes The Spirit of the Laws, analyzing political systems and proposing that power should be divided so that no ruler can dominate completely. Meanwhile, Denis Diderot and his collaborators are assembling the Encyclopédie, a massive project meant to gather all human knowledge and make it accessible. In this familiar version of history, the Enlightenment looks like a quiet intellectual revolution. Philosophers write books, educated readers discuss them in salons. Slowly, the authority of church and monarchy begins to weaken. There is truth in that story, but it is also incomplete. Because if we leave the salons and walk into the streets, we discover a very different literary world. The 18th century was also the age of what historians sometimes call the literary black market. France had strict censorship laws. The monarchy controlled printing and publishing. Books that criticized religion, politics, or morality could easily be banned. But banning books rarely makes them disappear. Often it makes them more desirable. Across the borders of France, especially in cities like Amsterdam, Geneva, and Neuchâtel, printers began producing illegal French-language books. These books were then smuggled into France through an underground distribution network that stretched across Europe. The historian Robert Darnton spent years studying this hidden world. By examining the records of 18th century publishers and smugglers, he reconstructed the secret catalogs of banned books circulating through France. What he discovered surprised many scholars. The most popular illegal books were often not philosophical works by Voltaire or Rousseau. They were scandalous political gossip. Many of them belonged to a genre known at the time as libelles. These were short, explosive pamphlets filled with rumors about the royal court. They accused ministers of corruption, mocked aristocrats, and most famously described the private lives of the king and queen in shocking detail. And often those descriptions were not just scandalous, they were obscene. One widely circulated text claimed to reveal the secret sexual adventures of Louis XV. Another invented elaborate stories about affairs inside the royal palace. Later, pamphlets targeted Marie Antoinette with an almost obsessive fascination. To modern readers, these texts can feel less like political philosophy and more like something between gossip magazines and underground comedy. But their political impact was real. For centuries, the French monarchy had cultivated an image of sacred authority. The king was not simply a political leader. He was God's representative on earth. Royal ceremonies were carefully designed to reinforce this image. Portraits of kings presented them as dignified, majestic, almost divine figures. But satire works in a very different way. Satire drags powerful people down from their pedestal and places them into absurd human situations. The underground pamphlets of the 18th century did exactly that. They turned kings and queens into characters in vulgar comedy. Instead of sacred rulers, readers encountered ridiculous personalities entangled in scandalous adventures. And this strategy had deep roots in European literary culture. Centuries earlier, the writer François Rabelais had already demonstrated the power of grotesque humor in works like Gargantua and Pantagruel. His giant characters drank enormous quantities of wine, mocked religious authorities, and turned intellectual debates into comic chaos. Rabelais showed that laughter could dismantle the solemn authority of institutions. Voltaire understood this tradition perfectly. In Candide, he attacked philosophical optimism not through dry argument, but through relentless satire. The story moves through disasters, wars, and absurd misfortunes, forcing readers to laugh at the gap between optimistic philosophy and brutal reality. Jonathan Swift in England used a similar strategy in Gulliver's Travels. By describing imaginary societies with bizarre customs, Swift exposed the absurdities of European politics and human pride. But the clandestine writers of the French underground went even further. They mixed satire with scandal. They wrote stories that suggested the monarchy was not simply misguided or corrupt. It was ridiculous, immoral, and deeply human in all the most embarrassing ways. And people read them. These books traveled secretly from hand to hand. Traveling booksellers carried hidden stock across the countryside. Secret catalogs circulated among readers who ordered forbidden titles under coded names. The result was a shadow library that existed alongside the official literary culture of France. In the respectable world of salons, intellectuals discussed Rousseau and the nature of political legitimacy. In the underground world of smuggled pamphlets, readers laughed at stories about the king. And literature has a strange power when it comes to shaping how we see authority. Writers do not only describe reality, they create characters that shape our imagination. Think about how Victor Hugo would later shape the way people imagined justice and mercy through Jean Valjean in Les Miserables, or how Charles Dickens portrayed the cruelty of industrial society through characters like Oliver Twist and the children trapped in workhouses. Fyodor Dostoevsky explored the tortured psychology of guilt and redemption through Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment. These characters become more than fictional people. They become ways of understanding society itself. Something similar happened in 18th century France. For generations, the monarchy had controlled its own narrative. Kings appeared in official histories, royal portraits, and public ceremonies as almost mythological figures. But the underground pamphlets rewrote that narrative. They turned the monarchy into a cast of comic characters. Louis XV became the aging libertine. Court ministers appeared as greedy schemers. Marie Antoinette became the target of endless rumors and outrageous stories. Whether these stories were true mattered less than the effect they produced. They replaced reverence with ridicule, and ridicule is dangerous to power. Because once a ruler becomes the subject of jokes, the distance between the ruler and the ruled begins to collapse. Instead of a sacred monarch chosen by divine will, people see a flawed human being. And flawed human beings can be questioned. They can be criticized. Eventually, they can even be removed. By the time the late 18th century arrived, France was already filled with social tensions. Economic crises were growing. Inequality between the aristocracy and ordinary people was becoming impossible to ignore. Philosophers like Rousseau had already argued that sovereignty ultimately belonged to the people. In The Social Contract, he famously wrote that man is born free, yet everywhere he is in chains. But political philosophy alone rarely produces revolutions. Revolutions happen when ideas meet imagination, and the imagination of the public had already been reshaped by decades of stories that made the monarchy look corrupt, decadent, and absurd. When the French Revolution finally erupted in 1789, the explosion of pamphlets and political cartoons was immediate. Suddenly, satire moved from the underground into the open. Newspapers, posters, and caricatures flooded the streets of Paris. The sacred aura of kingship had already been weakened long before Louis XVI faced trial. In a strange way, The revolution had been rehearsed in literature, not only in the philosophical works of Voltaire and Rousseau, but also in the forbidden jokes whispered through the literary black market. And that reveals something profound about the relationship between humor and power. Authoritarian systems often fear satire more than direct criticism. Criticism can be debated, it can be censored, it can be answered with official arguments. But laughter is harder to control. Laughter dissolves authority. When people laugh together at a ruler, they are already imagining a world where that ruler no longer stands above them. This is why satire has appeared again and again at critical moments in history. Jonathan Swift mocked the politics of the British Empire. George Orwell used the animals of Animal Farm to expose the mechanisms of totalitarian power. Even in modern societies, comedians and satirists often reveal truths that formal political speeches avoid. In 18th century France, the underground writers of scandalous pamphlets were doing something similar. They were rewriting the story of power, and they were doing it with jokes. If the Enlightenment had only produced serious philosophy, history might remember it as a purely intellectual movement. But the real Enlightenment was messier. It existed in libraries and coffee houses, but also in smuggled books, whispered rumors, and forbidden stories. On one side stood the respectable philosophers, writing elegant arguments about liberty and reason. On the other side stood the chaotic literary underground, laughing at kings. And somewhere between those two worlds, the old political order slowly began to crumble. Thanks for joining me today at the Lighthouse. If you enjoyed today's exploration of forbidden books, hit that subscribe button. Let's keep exploring the stories that reveal how literature, humor, and imagination quietly reshape the course of history. See you at the next Lighthouse.